The night was silent until a piercing cry echoed from the crumbling alley, where Emma whispered, "Why does life keep breaking me?" Her breath trembled as she clutched her torn shawl, the weight of loss heavy in her chest. Rain dripped down the broken roofs above, and thunder cracked like cruel laughter. Emma staggered forward, her eyes searching for comfort in the shadows, but only emptiness stared back. Her hands shook as she remembered the warmth of her mother's embrace, now gone. She said softly, "I will not let this pain consume me." A figure appeared at the corner, cloaked in darkness, watching with cold detachment. Mr. Grayson said, "Some people are born to crawl, not rise." His words cut like blades, and Emma's heart clenched tighter. She wanted to scream, but her voice betrayed her, lost in the storm. Behind her, the city lights flickered like dying embers, mirroring her fading hope. Yet, within the storm's chaos, a fragile spark refused to die. Emma whispered again, "One day I'll shine through this darkness." Lightning lit her tear-streaked face, revealing resolve beneath sorrow. The night grew darker, but the seed of resilience had already been planted. Emma stumbled through the soaked streets, the world pressing down on her like a weight she could not shed. She whispered, "I won't surrender to this misery." Her voice cracked, but it carried the sound of fragile hope. Her stomach growled painfully as hunger stabbed her ribs, yet she pressed forward. The cobblestones beneath her feet were slick with mud, but each step echoed her will. In her mind, her mother's voice still lingered, urging her to endure. She clutched at memories as though they were lifelines in the storm. Strangers passed with blank stares, unwilling to see her pain. Emma muttered, "Someday they'll see me." The rain soaked deeper into her bones, but it couldn't wash away the fire burning in her heart. Every moment was agony, yet she chose to keep walking. In that suffering, she began to sense her strength. The storm grew harsher, whipping wind and water into Emma's face. She stumbled into a corner shop doorway for shelter, shivering violently. She whispered, "I'll keep moving tomorrow." Her body ached from exhaustion, but her spirit ached more. She pressed against the wooden door, its rough surface cold and unwelcoming. Passers-by hurried past, umbrellas shielding them from a world they believed belonged only to them. Emma said bitterly, "They walk blind to my pain." Yet as she leaned against the door, a faint warmth flickered within her chest. She had endured storms before, and she knew she could endure this one too. Tears mixed with rain as she closed her eyes. Within the storm's cruelty, she heard her own heartbeat whispering courage. Emma's legs finally buckled, and she collapsed onto the wet street. Her palms scraped against the rough stone, blood mixing with rain. She cried, "Please, just let me breathe." Pain twisted her body, but she dragged herself to her knees. The storm drowned out her sobs, but inside she felt every echo. Memories of her mother's lullabies played faintly in her mind, soothing even as they haunted. She clenched her fists, whispering, "I am stronger than this." Strangers walked past, none offering help, their indifference sharper than knives. Emma pressed her forehead to the ground, whispering, "I will not vanish here." Lightning flashed, showing the determination rising within her trembling frame. She forced herself back up, even as her body screamed in protest. As dawn crept over the city, the storm eased into a quiet drizzle. Emma stood at the edge of the street, soaked and weary, but alive. She whispered, "A new day begins, and I am still here." The pale morning light touched her face, revealing scars, but also resilience. She looked at the rising sun with hollow eyes, slowly filling with strength. Her heart whispered that survival was its own form of victory. She took a step forward, each breath steadying. The shadows of the night lingered, but they no longer felt like chains. Emma clenched her fists and said, "I will fight until they cannot ignore me." The street was empty, yet it felt like the world itself had witnessed her vow. A fragile but unshakable seed of light had begun to grow. Emma walked through the quiet morning streets, her shawl clinging damp to her shoulders, every step a reminder of her hunger. She whispered, "Pain will not be my end." Her words were shaky, but her heart pulsed with defiance. She paused before a bakery window, the smell of bread pulling tears to her eyes. Children inside laughed as their parents handed them warm loaves, their joy pressing harder into Emma's chest. She said softly, "I once laughed like that." Memory pulled her back to her mother's gentle smile, the way she had wiped Emma's tears with rough, loving hands. Emma's chest ached, but she held on to that warmth like a fading ember. "I must keep going for her," she whispered. Her stomach growled, but her eyes shone with determination. She clenched her fists, pressing her face closer to the glass, not with envy, but with resolve. The storm had tried to break her, yet her will to rise burned brighter than the hunger inside. Emma wandered toward the riverbank, where the city's shadows met the water. She sat on the edge, staring at ripples reflecting the morning sky. She whispered, "The world moves, even when I cannot." The river carried pieces of broken wood, scraps of lives left behind. Emma said, "I am not a scrap, I am still breathing." She picked up a small stone and tossed it, watching the circles spread wider. "One ripple can change everything," she muttered, her lips curling faintly into the hint of a smile. Her reflection wavered in the water, fragile yet unbroken. She whispered, "I still see me, and that means I am not lost." Her voice trembled, but held quiet power. She leaned forward, letting the cool air sting her cheeks. Though her stomach twisted with hunger, her spirit steadied. The water whispered possibility, and Emma chose to believe. Emma wandered into the marketplace, where voices clashed like music and knives. Merchants shouted prices, laughter filled the air, but no one noticed a thin figure weaving through. She whispered, invisible, yet still here. She paused at a stall where fresh fruit gleamed like jewels. A merchant barked, "Move along, girl, no coins, no food." Emma lowered her gaze, her cheeks burning, but inside her heart refused shame. She muttered, "One day, I'll eat without begging." A child tugged at her sleeve, offering a half-eaten apple. But the child's mother yanked him away, eyes sharp with disdain. Emma whispered, "Kindness is rare, but I will not forget." The noise of the market overwhelmed her, yet inside she stood calm, her resolve hardening. She pushed through the crowd, her stomach aching, but her spirit unbent. Each rejection became a spark to fuel her rise. As evening approached, Emma found herself on the steps of a church, its doors heavy and silent. She pressed her back against the stone, whispering, "Even faith feels locked away." The sky turned orange, light spilling across her face like fleeting grace. She remembered her mother's prayers, whispered under candlelight, fragile but strong. Emma said softly, "Her faith gave me life. I cannot abandon it." She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting the scent of wax and old stone seep through cracks in the doors. "If no one else believes in me, I must believe for her," she murmured. Her heart pounded steady, echoing with something greater than hunger. She pressed her hand to the door, not asking for rescue but for strength. As shadows lengthened, she whispered, "I will not break." And for a moment, even silence seemed to answer. Night returned, but Emma's heart carried more light than before. She found a corner beneath an old bridge, curling up against the stone. "I am still here," she whispered, voice steady. Stars blinked faintly above, fighting through city smoke. Emma remembered her mother's lullaby and whispered it softly, a fragile melody against the cold night. "Her voice lives in me," she said. Her body shivered, but her eyes glowed with something fierce. The city hummed with indifference, but Emma felt herself growing stronger in silence. She whispered, "This suffering will not bury me. It will shape me." She hugged herself tightly, not in despair but in defiance. For the first time, she felt the smallest spark of peace. Her eyelids closed, and sleep claimed her like a gift. Even in darkness, her spirit remained unbroken. Emma pushed herself into the marketplace again, but today the air felt sharper, heavy with suspicion. Whispers followed her thin figure as she moved between stalls. A vendor sneered, "Thief, that's what you are." Her eyes widened, and she whispered, "I've stolen nothing." Yet the crowd stared, their judgment burning hotter than hunger. Mr. Grayson's voice suddenly cut through, cold and commanding. "I told you some people crawl. She is one of them." His words poisoned the air, and Emma's chest constricted. She said quietly, "You may call me nothing, but I am not nothing." The vendors laughed cruelly, pushing her aside, her body striking against wooden crates. Pain spread across her arms, but her spirit flared. "You cannot take my worth," she whispered, rising slowly, trembling yet unbroken. The jeers grew louder, but Emma's voice steadied within her heart. For the first time, she felt rage transform into fuel, not despair. Emma fled the noise, her feet carrying her into a narrow alley. She pressed against the wall, chest heaving, her mind screaming. She whispered, "They see me as dirt, but I will not stay dirt." Footsteps echoed, and from the shadows stepped Daniel, his voice calm. "You're stronger than you know." Emma startled, eyes wide with fear, but Daniel lifted his hands in peace. He said, "I'm not here to hurt you." His gaze was steady, his expression gentle, though his clothes bore signs of hardship. Emma whispered, "Why should I trust you?" Daniel replied, "Because I've been where you are." Her body shook with doubt, but something in his tone softened the edge of her fear. She looked at him, unsure, but whispered, "Then don't betray me." His voice steady, Daniel said, "I never will." For the first time, Emma felt the faint glow of an ally beside her. Daniel walked beside Emma, guiding her toward a quieter street. He said softly, "The world will always judge, but we don't need their approval." Emma frowned, whispering, "Easy words, harder life." Daniel smiled faintly. "I lived those words." He showed her a scar across his arm, proof of battles fought. Emma touched her shawl tighter, muttering, "Pain is the only gift I've known." Daniel shook his head, replying, "Pain is a teacher, not a chain." Emma's heart clenched, torn between disbelief and hope. She said, "If that's true, then I must learn quickly." Daniel's voice steadied, "Then I'll help you learn." For the first time, Emma felt a fragile thread of trust pulling her forward, though shadows of doubt clung tightly. She whispered, "Don't give me hope unless you mean it." He said firmly, "I mean every word." Her silence was no longer despair, but cautious faith. As they walked, laughter spilled from a tavern nearby, harsh and mocking. A drunk man stumbled out, shouting, "Beggar rats on my street." His voice laced with venom. He shoved Emma, and she fell hard, scraping her palms. Daniel stepped between them, his voice steady. "Enough. Leave her be." The man snarled, "Who'll stop me? You?" Daniel's eyes blazed as he replied, "Yes, me." Emma's breath caught, her heart pounding as the confrontation unfolded. She whispered weakly, "Don't fight for me." Daniel turned his head, voice firm but kind. "Sometimes strength is shared." The drunk lunged, but Daniel pushed him back, his stance unyielding. The crowd at the tavern cheered cruelly, eager for violence, but Emma's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she saw someone stand when the world turned away. She whispered, "Maybe I am not as alone as I believed." Later, Emma sat by the river again, her reflection quivering in the water. Daniel stood beside her silently, letting the night speak. She whispered, "Why did you help me?" He answered softly, "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing." Emma's chest tightened as she muttered, "I've only known betrayal." Daniel said firmly, "Not everyone leaves scars to wound. Some scars heal." She looked at him, torn between disbelief and yearning. Her voice trembled, "I want to believe you." Daniel knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on the ground, not touching, only near. He said, "Belief starts small like light in a storm." Emma's eyes watered, but she whispered, "Then maybe I am ready for a spark." The night wind carried her words across the river, as if the world itself listened. For the first time, Emma did not feel completely invisible. Emma followed Daniel through the narrow lanes until he stopped at a small abandoned house. He whispered, "There's something you should know." Her brows furrowed as fear coiled in her chest. Daniel continued, "The man who mocks you, Mr. Grayson, is not just a stranger. He once held power over your family." Emma's breath caught as her heart pounded like thunder. She said shakily, "What do you mean?" Daniel's face hardened, his voice steady. "He was the one who took your home. Your mother begged him for mercy, and he turned her away." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, her voice breaking. "He destroyed us." The revelation sliced her soul, but rage burned hot beneath her grief. Daniel said, "The truth is painful, but you deserve it." Emma clenched her fists, whispering, "Then I will face him, not as a beggar, but as myself." The storm inside her finally found its target. Emma sat on the cracked floorboards, staring at her trembling hands. She whispered, "All this time, I thought it was fate." Daniel said firmly, "It wasn't fate, it was his choice." Her heart ached as her mother's image returned, pleading, desperate, unheard. Emma muttered. She carried that silence until her last breath. Daniel's eyes softened as he said, "Your strength is her legacy." Emma shook, tears falling fast, yet her voice steadied. "If he tried to erase us, I will prove we cannot be erased." Daniel crouched near, voice steady. "That's the fire he fears." She clenched her shawl close, whispering, "Then I'll burn brighter than his cruelty." The shadows of the room seemed to listen as Emma's resolve hardened into steel. She realized she wasn't powerless. She had survived storms he never could. Later that night, Emma stepped into the street, her eyes searching the shadows. She whispered, "If he destroyed me once, he will not again." Mr. Grayson emerged from the darkness, smirk sharp as a blade. He said coldly, still standing, "Impressive for a beggar's daughter." Emma's jaw tightened as her fists curled. "You took everything from us," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. He sneered, "Your mother begged like a dog and I refused. Weakness disgusts me." Emma's chest burned, grief twisting into defiance. "You call it weakness," she said, "but she taught me strength." His smirk faded for a moment, then returned sharper. He muttered, "You will learn that crawling is your fate." Emma's voice rose clear and unyielding. "No, crawling was yours, I will rise." The confrontation shook her soul, but her voice carried fire through the night. The alley grew tense as footsteps approached. From the shadows, a familiar voice broke Emma's breath. Lily whispered, "Emma?" Her childhood friend stood there, face pale with guilt. Emma gasped, "Lily, you?" Lily's eyes filled with shame as she said, "I told Grayson where your family hid that night. I thought he would spare me." Emma's body froze as betrayal burned deeper than any wound. She said through clenched teeth, "You gave him our lives." Lily's tears streamed as she cried, "I was afraid. I didn't know he would destroy you completely." Emma's chest heaved, grief crushing her. She whispered, "Fear does not excuse betrayal." Lily sobbed, "I regret it every day." Emma turned away, whispering, "Regret cannot erase the ashes." In that moment, she realized betrayal was as deadly as cruelty, yet her spirit stood taller, no longer shattered by secrets. Emma staggered away from the confrontation, her heart fractured yet blazing. She whispered, "Cruelty and betrayal may chain me, but they will not own me." Daniel caught up, his voice steady. "You've faced the truth, and still you stand." Emma's eyes glistened as she said, "Grayson stole my home, Lily gave him my trust, yet I am still here." Daniel nodded, voice low but firm. "That means you've already won the first battle." Emma looked up at the night sky, stars faint but unyielding. She whispered, "Then I will fight the next." Her voice rang like a vow, steady and sharp. The world had revealed its ugliest truths, but Emma's heart burned stronger, no longer just surviving. She said, "I am not the girl he broke. I am the girl he will never break again." And with that, her journey shifted from survival to defiance. The marketplace was alive again, but this time Emma walked in with her head unbowed. Whispers rose, people staring at the thin girl who dared to return. She whispered, "Let them watch." Mr. Grayson's voice sliced through the air. "Back again? Some fools never learn." Emma's chest tightened, but her voice was steady. You stole my mother's hope, but you will not steal mine." Laughter erupted from the vendors, sharp and cruel. Grayson stepped closer, towering, sneering. "You think words make you strong." Emma's voice rose, breaking through the jeers. "Strength is not in cruelty. It is in surviving when cruelty tries to kill you." The crowd grew silent, her words hanging heavy. Emma trembled, but she did not look away. The fire in her eyes told the world she would not crawl again. Grayson's smirk faded as he stepped forward, his voice low and venomous. "You dare speak like this to me?" Emma's breath shook, but her words were iron. "Yes, because I will never be your victim again." His hand lashed out, striking her across the face. Gasps filled the marketplace, the sound echoing like thunder. Emma fell to her knees, her cheek burning, blood on her lip. Daniel rushed forward, shouting, "Enough!" Grayson growled, "Stay out of this." But Emma, still on the ground, lifted her head, eyes blazing. "You can strike me, but you cannot silence me." Her voice carried like fire, forcing the crowd to watch not in mockery, but awe. Pain surged through her body, yet her spirit burned brighter than ever before. The crowd buzzed with unease, murmurs rising like a storm. Emma pushed herself to her feet, her voice fierce. "You call me nothing, but here I stand, stronger than you imagined." Daniel placed a steadying hand near her shoulder, but Emma stepped forward alone. Grayson's eyes narrowed, fury burning. "I will crush you like I crushed your mother," he spat. Emma's heart cracked, but she whispered, "Her strength lives in me." Lightning split the sky above as though the heavens themselves bore witness. She shouted, "This is not your world anymore. You cannot erase me." The crowd fell silent, their gazes shifting uneasily from Grayson to Emma. For the first time he looked unsettled. Emma's body shook with exhaustion, yet her voice struck like thunder. She was no longer a beggar in their eyes. She was a force. Grayson lunged at Emma, rage blinding his eyes, but Daniel caught his arm, shoving him back. The crowd gasped, torn between fear and awe. Emma stepped closer, her voice unshaken. "Strike me again if you dare, but know this, I will not break." Grayson struggled, snarling, "You are nothing without pity." Emma's lips curled into a bitter smile. "I am everything without it." Daniel pushed him back further, his voice firm. "This ends now." The people murmured louder, the tide of judgment shifting. Emma whispered fiercely, "You cannot erase the truth anymore. The world sees you now." Grayson's power, once absolute, cracked before her defiance. The silence of the marketplace was no longer mocking, it was reverent. Emma had turned pain into power before their eyes. At last, silence settled. Grayson staggered back, defeated not by force, but by the weight of truth and defiance. His voice cracked with rage. "This city will never see you as more than dirt." Emma stepped forward, voice steady as steel. "Then I will shine until they cannot look away." Daniel's eyes glowed with pride as he whispered, "You've already begun." The crowd, once cruel, now bowed heads in quiet respect. Emma's chest heaved, her body aching, but her spirit soared. She whispered, "This pain will not chain me. It has forged me." She turned from Grayson, her steps steady, her shadow long against the stones. For the first time, she walked not as a victim, but as her own light. And as she disappeared into the storm, her vow lingered in the air, unbreakable. Emma walked along the quiet streets after the confrontation, her body aching but her heart steady. She whispered, "The storm did not end me. It remade me." Daniel walked beside her, silent but watchful. He said softly, "You have faced more than most ever could." Emma lowered her gaze, murmuring, "I am still afraid." Daniel answered firmly, "Courage is not the absence of fear, it is walking through it." She let his words settle into her chest, warming the cracks left behind. The city lights flickered dimly above, no longer mocking but distant, as if watching her rebirth. Emma whispered, "Then I will keep walking, even with fear." Daniel's hand tightened into a fist at his side, pride burning in his eyes. In the silence, Emma finally felt her pain bend into strength, no longer chains but fuel. The night had tested her, and she endured. Emma paused near the old church steps, the same place where she had once whispered for strength. She touched the heavy door, murmuring, "I found strength inside me after all." Her voice cracked but carried calm pride. Daniel stood nearby, silent. Emma's thoughts drifted to her mother's prayers, and she whispered, "I carry her faith in me." The memory of betrayal still ached, Lily's tearful face haunting her, but Emma steadied herself. "Pain will not be my anchor." Daniel finally spoke, voice quiet. "Your mother would see you shining now." Emma's eyes filled, but she smiled faintly through tears. The sky was turning violet with dawn, and Emma whispered, "Then I will shine brighter for her." The church doors stayed closed, but Emma no longer needed them. She had become her own sanctuary. At the riverbank, Emma crouched to stare at her reflection again. The face looking back was scarred but unyielding. She whispered, "I do not see the girl who begged, I see the girl who endured." Daniel sat a few steps away, watching quietly, letting her words breathe. She cupped water in her hands, washing her bruised cheeks, murmuring, "These marks will fade, but my fire will remain." Daniel said softly, "The city tried to break you. Instead, it revealed you." Emma's chest rose, her voice steady. "Then let them see me not as dirt but as light." Her reflection shimmered with morning light, rippling like a promise. She smiled faintly, not in defiance but in quiet peace. For the first time, Emma saw herself not as broken, but whole. Emma walked past the marketplace once more, the same place that had ridiculed her. Vendors whispered, their eyes no longer mocking but uneasy, even respectful. One woman muttered softly. She stood against him and did not fall. Emma lifted her chin, her voice quiet but firm. "I will no longer bow to cruelty." She did not shout, but her words cut sharper than anger. Daniel followed silently, watching the crowd step aside as Emma walked through. She whispered to herself, "Their judgment no longer binds me." The air felt lighter, as though the stones themselves carried her steps. Where she once crawled, now she walked tall. The memory of humiliation clung faintly, but the power of survival outweighed it. Emma no longer carried only scars, she carried proof of her unbreakable will. That evening, Emma sat with Daniel on a hill overlooking the city. The sky burned orange as the sun sank low. She whispered, "I survived storms, betrayal, and cruelty, and yet I remain." Daniel said softly, "You are more than what they tried to make you." Her chest filled with breath like fire, and she murmured, "I am not only surviving, I am beginning to live." Daniel's face softened, a rare smile breaking his usual sternness. He said, "Your journey is only starting." Emma whispered, "Yes, but this time, it begins with me." She gazed at the horizon, her eyes alive with purpose. For the first time, Emma did not see shadows. She saw a possibility. Her lips parted in a vow. "I will be my own light, even in the darkest nights." The sun dipped, leaving behind the glow of her resolve. The city lay quiet under the fading twilight, as Emma walked through its heart, no longer hiding in shadows. She whispered, "These streets once broke me. Now they witness my strength." Daniel followed at a distance, his gaze protective yet proud. Passers-by turned their heads, some whispering, some staring in silence, but Emma did not lower her eyes. She muttered softly, "I will not be invisible again." Her steps echoed with confidence where fear once trembled. Memories of cruelty and betrayal haunted her, but each one became fuel for the fire in her chest. She clenched her fists, whispering, "Every scar is proof I survive." For the first time, she walked not as a girl beaten down, but as a woman rising. Emma turned toward the riverbank, where her reflection once trembled with fear. Tonight, the water shimmered beneath the stars. She knelt, whispering, "I do not see weakness anymore." Her reflection glowed back, scarred but strong. Daniel's voice carried softly, "What do you see now?" Emma answered firmly, "I see light, and it is mine." She touched the ripples gently, her eyes softening as her scars became symbols instead of chains. The night air wrapped around her like a calm embrace. She whispered, "No one can take this from me." Her heart, once shattered, now pulsed with resolve. The river no longer mirrored despair. It reflected her rebirth. The church bells rang faintly in the distance, their sound echoing through the city. Emma looked up, her voice quiet but sure. "Faith carried me here, but my strength will carry me forward." Daniel said softly, "You are stronger than even you realize." Emma's lips curved into the faintest smile. She whispered, "I am no longer afraid of the silence." For so long, silence had been her prison, but now it felt like her sanctuary. The bells faded, leaving only the steady beat of her heart. Emma pressed her hand to her chest, murmuring, "I am alive, and that is enough." In that moment, her pain no longer defined her. Her survival did. Emma returned to the alley where her journey had begun. The broken walls, the dripping shadows, all looked smaller now. She whispered, "This place tried to bury me, but it only planted me." Daniel said quietly, "And now you bloom." Emma touched the stone wall, her fingers tracing the cracks once filled with tears. She whispered, "I will never fear this darkness again." Her voice was not angry, it was resolute. The alley no longer felt like a cage, but like proof of her endurance. She stepped forward, her shadow long, her posture unyielding. What once symbolized despair now bowed to her strength. As dawn broke, Emma stood atop the hill overlooking the city, the horizon painted with gold. She whispered, "I was born in darkness, but I will live as light." Daniel stepped beside her, his voice soft, "The world will remember your fire." Emma smiled faintly, her eyes fixed on the rising sun. She whispered, "The girl they tried to break became the light they cannot ignore." Her scars glowed under the morning rays, not as wounds but as symbols of victory. The city below stirred to life, unaware that its greatest survivor now looked down with unshakable resolve. Emma's final vow echoed through the morning air, "I am the light in my own darkness, and I will never fade." The story had led her here, and her strength would carry her forever forward.